What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today, as you can tell, we are going to be talking about houseplants, specifically your pothos. It's going to be your pothos and your pothos. Air quotes being because there are certain species of plants that have the same characteristics and care requirements as the humble pothos, and they can be used just the same as what we're going to talk about here today. So let's just get right into it. How I started, and I'm sure you guys have heard, a lot of people in our hobby use these plants in two ways. I think the main reason could be for that uptake of the nitrates. Um, and then secondly, just because they look nice. Look natural, give you a jungle-esque vibe because they are vining. You can have an amazing tank with these vines just coming out from it, which personally, I dig it. That's like my style. It might not be for you, but even if it isn't, you can definitely use this to supplement that nutrient uptake in your aquariums. So we are going to start with the one that I started with when I started in this hobby. I can't remember if I bought it or I got a cutting from somebody I knew. But that's this regular green pothos. Nothing special about it. I've seen them everywhere from Walmarts to Home Depots. Uh, Actually, a lot of these you can find now at those big box stores. But let me just take it out. This one has a nice root system. It's very tangled with other ones. So this, it came from a cutting. It was just cut right here, no roots, no nothing. Just put into water. Probably about a month later, you can see the roots starting to form. If you don't after a month, that happens. It might take a couple, but just leave it in there. If you see the leaves are still doing fine, you're okay. Once you see a nice root system like this is ready to go inside your tank. Now, what this does for the tank is just like aquarium plants do, is it'll suck up all the nitrates, which was basically feeding these plants. If you have an aquarium light, to give the light. Good thing about these, their light requirements are not demanding. So aquarium light is fantastic. If you're using like a shop light or even like ambient room light, or if your tank is, by a window and is getting some sun, these plants will still thrive. So that is the best thing about these, is they're super hardy, almost bulletproof. I just don't see why you wouldn't add these to your tanks. So let's actually talk about a couple different plants before we go deeper into it. So this is your traditional pothos. I think it's just a green. If you go, you might see ones that look like this, which is a neon pothos. Just as the name sounds, it is more neon, more brighter, nice punch of color. I like it because the contrast is there. And then there's a plant like this. It's almost a combination of the two, but this is not a pothos. It looks like one because it's vining, but this is a philodendron. It's called the Philodendron Brasil. They do sell these at Home Depot. Nice basket size, probably 20 bucks or so. You'll get a good size, probably like this. So this one was at Lowe's. This is an actual pothos. Enjoy. I really like the white and green contrasted variegation of these plants. If you just let it go, it will vine like this. This is what you want because you're going to take cuttings from this to propagate in water. Essentially, if you just wanted to take this plant and put it in an aquarium, you could. Only caution you're going to have to take is to thoroughly rinse off all the soil from the roots, because it will cause root rot. Needless to say, it'll make your tank dirty, literally. Might be a little cloudy, so you do not want any of the soil inside your aquarium. It could also have, any types of pesticides or anything you don't want in there. So you want to clean it thoroughly. I, kind of rub the roots with my fingers. If you have like a toothbrush, that's probably even better, but you want to get 100% of the soil off. To be honest, I've never gotten 100% off, just because you're going to find little crevices where soil is going to be. If you're in the high 90 percentile of getting the soil off, that's going to be fine. So this, I just took a cutting from it. This is from that plant I just showed you last. I just snipped it. You can see that there's no root system growing here, but what you do see are these little nubs on the nodes. So what a node is, it's kind of where the juncture of where the leaf stem hits the actual stem. And you can see, besides those big nubby parts, if you look on the stem, I just don't know if it's focusing well. If you look on the stem of this or any plants, you're going to see like little dots, and they're going to be like raised points. Those are where your roots are essentially going to grow from, roots and leaves. So when you cut it, you're going to want to cut right under one of those points, because that is where the roots will grow from. And then want to make sure that is fully submerged in the water. Just let it sit. Let it sit for a month. You'll probably start to see some action in like 2 to 3 weeks. But if you don't, like this Philodendron micans, I've got a huge trailing pot right there. I have probably a 50% success rate in getting these guys to root. I have found that if you are adding water from your tank into a separate container to root these, it is worse. It's worse because there's bacteria in that tank water, and it just makes the water dirtier faster. More algae. I think it might hurt the progress in. It does seem to give it root rot faster. And what root rot is I don't know if I have an example here, but I'll show you guys in one of my tanks. It pretty much softens and darkens the stem, and it's mushy. Severe cases of root rot literally smell like rotten eggs. So you will know that it's root rot. If you do experience any root rot, you're just going to have to remove all of that darkened area until you don't see it anymore and start fresh again. A tip, I don't use it, but I probably should, is when you take a cutting, I'm just going to cut one right now. Let's take a cutting. A lot of people say to let the cutting callus over. What that means is let that new fresh cutting harden. Just like when you get a scratch, you eventually it'll harden up and you'll get a scab over it. Pretty much like that. So, okay, I'm trying not to go everywhere, but I'm going to take a cutting right under one of these growth points. And I still have that little nub plus the little 2 dots. What I like to do is I like to remove that last leaf. Why? Because it gives me a stem. Now that stem helps me put it in the water and hold it there. From my experience, if leaves aren't grown underwater, if they go underwater, they will die off. What that does is probably going to create a little bit more ammonia too. If you have that die off, if it's an accident, sometimes I have my plants that just fall into the water. They'll just turn yellow, and I'll just remove them once I see that. So that one I just put straight in the water. So if I wanted to listen to the advice of a lot of people, after I cut it, I would just leave it out. Plants retain a lot of water, so if I leave this out, probably even, I don't know, a few days, it is going to be just fine. I'll leave it out, just leave it on my counter, forget about it, maybe give it some light, just put it on a shelf or on top of my aquarium. Once that cutting, I feel, is hard, like it doesn't look like, it's wet from being freshly cut, then I can safely put it in water. I will have less of a chance for any rot to form. I haven't tried that yet because I'm impatient, and I haven't had the need to, because I don't know, I don't feel that there is enough failures with these pothos that I've experienced that I need to let that happen. Maybe the micans I might, but I'll just take that cutting and put it in water. I have put fresh cuttings in, I don't know what this is, in an aquarium before. I haven't done enough experimenting with controls and variables to tell you if this one works better or not. But the thing about the aquarium is that you have a filter, either a filter or an air stone, and it consistently pumps oxygen into the aquarium. What these plants need is oxygen. The roots, they do need oxygen. So if you're thinking that plants only need water, that would be incorrect. Just because they can create, they can they can develop something that's called root rot, which is pretty much the suffocation of the roots. And there's a lot of anaerobic bacteria that grows to create that rot because they don't have enough oxygen in them. A lot of people, they say change out the water to the to the vessels of your propagations once a week, about average is what I've seen, to change out the water for the purpose of the lack of oxygen. This is just sitting there. There's no surface agitation. It is going to develop bacteria. Sometimes if you put it under lights, you are going to see some algae growing. And as unsightly as it is, I don't think that's going to be beneficial for your cuttings. So we'll show you an example soon as well. But there are a lot of different types of pothos, a lot of different types of vining philodendrons. This one right here looks like a pothos, but it's from the family of Scindapsus. It's all called the silver satin. It's got a nice pattern to it. I really like it. I use it in my aquariums as well. Treat it just the same as any of these. I know it's confusing. It took me a while to get used to a lot of aquarium plant names, and then diving into houseplants. I feel like it's worse. It's more, there's just too much. But this is definitely where you're going to start. And I'm giving you a warning that you might dive into the rabbit hole to end up like this. But I think it's nice. It is nice. I like how it looks. So let me show you a couple things. This is my plant wall. So right in front of it, I have a 10-gallon tank here. This is what I use on a large scale. As you can see, it's got a lot of plants in there, and they're all cuttings. So normally I would have it like this, cuttings inside a vessel that has clean water, leave it there until I see a good root system. What this one does on a larger scale is, first, it enables me to house my larger stemmed plants, larger quantity, plus it lets me just fit as much as I want in here. Couple things. You can see the water movement. I've got a water pump in there, as well as an air stone. A lot of people in the plant community always talk about air stones. Air stones provide oxygen. You need them for your propagations. But I think I said this before, we in the aquarium community, we know that it's just not the bubbles, but it's the surface agitation that provides oxygen into the water. So just having a pump like that, just causing that movement is just as good as having an air stone. But you won't see any water pumps with the plant people. I don't think they know that yet, but hopefully some are watching now and they will learn. So I have a lot of propagations in here. A lot of them are rooting. This one right here was just a big root ball. I just tossed in here to see if it can do better. I've tossed in just some stem pieces, and you can see they're already sprouting new growth. If you look here, you can tell a lot of new growth is the really white and light color roots. And I have not changed this water for a long time. I've just added water, and it's looking good. It's still very clear. Obviously, I have some debris. I promise you that is all from this dirty lava rock that I put down there. But I've got all my vessels. What you don't want to do is have the leaves in the water like this, because they'll kind of start to die off unless they've grown in the water. So I'll just have to relocate that guy. But yeah, this has been going really well for me. Like this Monstera Thai constellation, look at that. That was just from an aerial root, and it's already gotten a new growth point right there, and then some crazy root action. So this is probably going to be ready to go in a different container, not just water. I've done that with these right here. All those were rooted inside water. I've transferred them over to LECA, and some nice growth happening. Exhibit B, you guys know my planter pondish thing here. I know it's got a lot going on. Just got some new plants from the swap the other day and just tossed them in here to see what they would do. But okay, so here, the regular green pothos, long stem, but it's got a root system there. This is, I could probably cut it, but I keep it here just so I can have it kind of anchor. And this one right here is completely different, but if you can see, this is what I'm talking about. So has a huge root system, but right there where those nodes are, those little points, more roots are growing. So if you keep the stem inside water, just like that, roots will start to grow out other points. And what you can do from here is I can cut it essentially right here and just have 2 plants, and that'll be fine. Because that's going to be the case for, this is my Mandula pothos. It's huge as well, but you can see a lot of the stem is inside the water. So you can see there are multiple root points. So if I wanted to, I can also just snip it right here, and I have 2 plants, but I'm just going to keep this guy growing. So let me see if I can give you guys a better look. Like that. Focus. This right here is a node. All right, so all these little points, oh no, it's not focusing. There we go. All these little points are what you want to keep so the roots can grow out of there. So you're going to cut it right here and stick this part in the water. And you're going to see all these little node pieces, little nubs. So that's from where roots can grow from. If you follow this up, you'll see it on the stems as well. Over there, over here. These are the little parts, little bumps I'm talking about where you're going to want to keep so the roots can grow out of. Leave those underwater. All right, so let me show you. Okay, so I want to put this guy back to how it's supposed to be. All right, I'll fix it later, but let me show you, because here I just saw, this is a philodendron, but right here, it's in the water like this. That dark spot, that is root rot. Like, just by looking at it, I can tell, but when I touch it, definitely soft. I don't know if that small piece is going to smell or not, but I'm not going to smell it. But even though it has roots down here, since this part was in the water, I don't know. I don't have this happen too often, but I'm going to have to cut it probably again up here somewhere. Just dunk this part in the water. Probably would do it in a fresh cup of water, but it's already taking some damage because of this. It is not getting the nutrients from that root since there is interference right here. So I'll have to take some action on that guy, but just let that guy hang. Let's fix this somehow so that doesn't happen over here. My other glass bowl, same thing probably here. I'm going to see a lot of roots. A lot of roots here, here. Probably have some roots going here. I could chop that in half too, but I'm just letting it grow. That is also a pothos back there. Here's an example of water that needs to be changed. If I move it around, you guys can probably see a lot of algae down there, plus a lot of evaporation happens. So I'm going to dump it out, kind of clean it out with my finger, refill it up. Here, this is not a pothos, but this is regular philodendron. Do keep in mind, you can use anything to hold water. This is just a tall glass, shot glass. Just remember, if you're using a big cutting, use something with some weight to it like this. These are a bunch of, I don't know, souffle cups or something I got from the dollar store. Plastic, really light. Fill it with water. It's got a little weight to it, but I wouldn't put a larger cutting in there because I've had them tip over. And then on the axolotl tank, I do have this this little plant basket that keeps those roots in the water. You can kind of see, I know it's kind of got some buildup there, but if I'm already looking at it, some roots are taking. The one that's attached to this one is not. The one that's attached to this looks very nice. This one for sure has some nice root growth. And yeah, you can just kind of tell there. So I think that's it. It gives you a quick summary about an introduction into aquarium plants that are house plants. And hopefully you guys learned something. I think if you guys haven't given it a shot, definitely to try it, because I feel like the pros outweigh the cons, and it could be definitely beneficial. Plus, they look nice, right? All right. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next one.